What's up everybody, Noble Comics here, and in the vast universe of manga and anime, few names shine as brightly as Dragon Ball. Created by the visionary Akira Toriyama, this series has transcended its pages and screens to become a global phenomenon. Since then it has been loved and sometimes hated around the world for various reasons, usually pertaining to the series' protagonist, Goku. Join us as we delve into the history of Dragon Ball, the life of its creator, and the journey of its most iconic character, Goku. Akira Toriyama was born in 1955 in Nagoya, Japan. As a young man, he took to art and drawing alongside some of his classmates, but he was clearly gifted. His inspiration primarily came from Astro Boy, which he and all his friends loved to watch, though he admittedly wasn't really interested in manga. He enjoyed film and TV, especially Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan action movies like Enter the Dragon and Drunken Master. While he did go on to go to a school specializing in creative design, he was more focused on relaxing and hanging out with his friends. And later, to the disappointment of his parents, he ended up joining the workforce with an advertising agency instead of furthering his education. This was not meant to last, however, as Toriyama had always been an easygoing person, laid back, wanting to relax, and relatively introverted. In other words, he was literally me. This conflicted with his job, where he was always showing up late, dressing too casually, and overall not meshing with the workplace culture. And so he quit at the age of 23. But he did still need money, and so he decided to enter some manga contests for the weekly Shonen Jump magazine, with mostly joking entries like a parody of Star Wars. But he was noticed for his talent regardless, and was encouraged to keep up the submissions. This eventually led to some smaller manga of little success like Wonder Island and Wonder Island 2, starting in 1978, and the failures of these would have deterred many, but it only drove Toriyama deeper, wanting to stubbornly overcome his failures. One of his mentors, Kazuhiko Torishima, suggested that he try a story with a female protagonist, which led to the creation of Tomato the Cutesy Gumshoe in 1979, which was his first success. After this though, Toriyama had his real breakthrough, the series that began his career. This was a series called Dr. Slump.
徹子の部屋でございます。今日はもう小さい方々に圧倒的の人気漫画、それからテレビでもアニメーションで皆さんご覧になってらっしゃるんですけれども、ドクタースランプをお書きになってらっしゃる方でいらっしゃるんですが、その中のあられちゃんというのはもうご覧になったことがなくてもあられちゃんという名前をお聞きになったと思いますけど、その作者が今日のお客様でいらっしゃるんです。で、本当はもっと早くおいでいただきたかったんですけど、去年ご結婚式となんか長者番付1位の発表が同時になっちゃったんでごちゃごちゃになって、なんかとても純粋でいらっしゃるこの方はすっかりもう人間が怖くなったお芝居に乗って今までなんかお顔をお見せくださらなかったんですけど、今日やっておいていただきました鳥山明さん、今日のお客様です。
This was a comedy surrounding the main protagonist, the perverted Dr. Slump, and his robot Arale. It was funny, it was popular, it was inappropriate at times, and full of parody. This comedy made him a household name and won him some awards, and over its lifetime it sold over 35 million copies.
これは連載を始めしてらっしゃるんですね。はい。雑誌に。そうです。連載、それはジャンプに。そうです。ドクタースランプっていうのは連載だったんですけど、一番最初はもう読み切りで始まったですけど。でもその話が後先になりますけど、いろんなことがあってジャンプにお書きになることになったきっかけは、あなたのお名前は鳥山さんなんだけれども、ジャンプの担当の方が何という？鳥島っていうんです。ねえ、あなたが鳥島さんってややこしいんですよ。あなたが鳥山さんでジャンプの編集の係の方が鳥島さん、でその方が書いてみないかっていうことで読み切りで、はい、で読み切りは成功したんですか？いや全然ダメだったみたいですね。ああ、どういうところでダメってお分かりになったんですか？こう雑誌の最初の方にアンケート用紙っていうのがあるんですね、面白かったものに丸をつけろと、でそれで集計すれば分かるんですけど。
And it even got an anime adaptation at the time. It had a serial run from 1980 through 1984, though Toriyama never expected or really wanted it to be an ongoing series. And so, after the success of Dr. Slump, he was looking for something new. He did a few one-shots like Pola and Royd and Mad Matic, but another suggestions from Torishima pointed him in the right direction, to do something like one of those martial arts movies he likes, right? And so the groundwork for Dragon Ball was laid. This started as a two-part series called Dragon Boy in 1983 in the Fresh Jump magazine, which was a success and later went on to become Dragon Ball in 1984. And Dragon Ball, as we know, started as this whimsical tale that followed the adventures of a monkey-tailed boy named Goku as he searched for the mystical Dragon Ball. This was initially inspired by the Chinese novel Journey to the West, where Goku represents the monkey Sun Wukong and similarly mixes adventure, comedy, and Chinese inspiration. The story was supposed to last about a year, ending with the characters obtaining the Dragon Balls and making their wish, and this part was actually also inspired by the Chinese novel Nanso Satomi Hakiden, which involves some heroes collecting 8 Buddhist prayer beads instead of 7 Dragon Balls. Needless to say, the series was popular, but it really took off when Toriyama started adding some more visually interesting characters, and especially with the Tenkaichi Budokai tournament, or the martial arts tournament where we really got to see that action movie Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan inspiration shine. This is where the real heart and soul of the series that we know today was born, and it also birthed my personal favorite Dragon Ball character, first here as a villain, Piccolo. But more than that, we got to see Goku grow up, we got to see him compete in this tournament with his amazing martial arts abilities. Even though he initially loses, he does come back around to win. And also, this design of Goku, again, takes inspiration from Lee and Chan, being a smaller character, even though he is the most powerful, which was different than most manga at the time. After this, Dragon Ball changed some. Goku's origin was retconned as the Saiyan and Frieza saga began, and the Saiyan lore was laid into the story. From here, many iconic storylines and forms were added in, from Super Saiyan in the Frieza saga to time travel in the Cell saga, but all of this was more on the fly than fully planned out. Toriyama was just adding in what he thought was cool and what would make fans happy, and in the case of Super Saiyan, what was less work. Because it turns out it was easier to draw the blonde hair than to color in Goku's black hair for every panel. He also often has Goku and his team go to remote locations to fight, and in the series, right, that's always for the safety of the civilians, though in reality it just made it easier not having to draw as detailed backgrounds and civilians. Toriyama also still wasn't reading much manga at the time, which was said to contribute to the success of Dragon Ball, as all his ideas were more original and not influenced by what he was reading. Also an interesting note that in the Cell saga, after Gohan defeats Cell, it was intended for Gohan to become the new protagonist of the series, taking over Goku's role, but ultimately he decided that it was not suited for the character, and we saw Gohan go down a much different route in his life than his father Goku did, who stayed as the series protagonist, probably for the better. And as the story went on, Toriyama found himself more interested in writing than drawing, but when it came to art, his focus was on making the action feel fast and impactful. This really helped simplify the art as well, not needing to be as elaborate, while still delivering the best fight scenes that we've seen with this new style. The series continued until 1995, where Toriyama grew tired of drawing and wanted a break. He did a few one-shots over the next few years and even got to do some cool things like design a car, but he was glad to spend time with his wife and children. He also rarely did interviews due to his shyness, but whenever he did, he often appeared as Robo Toriyama or Toribot, which is sort of a joke robot avatar of himself, which also appears in many of his manga series, including Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump. In the few interviews that we did get to hear or read what Toriyama was saying, it was very interesting to get a glimpse of his character, where you can definitely tell that he is the same laid-back, easygoing, wanting to relax type of guy that he always has been. He's just doing what he likes and doing what he thinks is cool, and the continuity and everything is not super important. Like in one interview where he claims that he forgot that he even created Super Saiyan 3. He saw the image of Goku with the very long hair and thought it was Super Saiyan 2 and thought to himself that he had kind of gone overboard there. This pattern has led to some of his interviews contradicting other interviews and contradicting the story that we've seen, which all just sort of leads to the fact that he is sort of making it up as he goes, and that he doesn't take the continuity very serious, He just likes to show cool fight scenes and a cool story, which was good enough for most. In fact, it was good enough to have Dragon Ball be re-released many times over the years, and in total it had over 350 million sales. Not to mention the extremely popular anime, both in Japan and across the world, especially here in the West, which was redone a few times from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z Kai, always finding new and interested viewers. Toriyama has commented on the success of the series, saying that he didn't know how it happened. All he was focused on was making Japanese boys happy, so fair to say that he succeeded in that aspect. The Dragon Ball story didn't officially continue until 2015 with the launch of Dragon Ball Super, which is still running to this day. Now, this series is different than the previous ones, where it is not drawn by Akira Toriyama, but it is written by him and is drawn by Toyo Toro. And this does follow Goku and team, reaching higher levels of power than ever before, obtaining God Ki and fighting the mightiest opponents we've ever seen. Some notable fights from this series, of course, include the Super Broly fight, Jiren in the Tournament of Power, Moro, and continued training under Beerus, the God of Destruction, and the Angel Whis. Needless to say that Goku has continued his trend of overcoming whatever enemy stands in his way, and getting a new hairstyle every time he does. And Goku obviously was a large part of the success of the series. He was different and was special, especially to Western audiences, I believe. Goku is not like a typical protagonist or superhero that we were familiar with. We got to see Goku grow up from a boy all the way to a grandfather. His demeanor was also quite unique and refreshing, being jovial, funny, and kind, though willing to get serious to protect his friends. No doubt this characterization has influenced countless characters going forward, including some of the most popular other manga characters that we've seen. He's also incredibly skilled, but not in the same way that superheroes like Superman or Spider-Man or the Hulk are, where they are born with powers and skills or they encounter them through some accident. Goku had to train and work hard to get stronger and more skilled and learn new techniques. His force of will and refusal to give up directly led to him becoming stronger, becoming more impressive, and overcoming powerful enemies. There was also a huge focus on protecting his friends and family. It was a very personal and relatable mission for a character this strong. This type of manga protagonist really has become its own archetype nowadays. But at the time, it was more unique. More than this though, the character was extremely hype and stylized like nothing we had seen before. From the hairstyles, which may have been an inspiration from Astro Boy, to the powering up / the screaming and the new forms and the martial arts, it brought a type of excitement to the pages and the screen that was missing. It changed the way power was shown and progressed forever. The character did change some though as the series went on. In the original Dragon Ball, the focus was much more on the martial arts. The hand-to-hand combat here was peak, and that's what the tournament was all about, being the greatest martial artist in the world. As it went on though, power crept higher and higher. Martial arts is definitely still a focus and can still be seen as recently as Dragon Ball Super, right? But other techniques and forms certainly took the spotlight. From the Kaioken to the Kamehameha to the Spirit Bomb, a clear difference was made to showcase power more than showcase skill. This character Goku went from being the greatest martial artist on Earth to becoming one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse. A change that many have been supportive of, and that some have been critical of. So what is it about Goku and Dragon Ball that has been so controversial? Why is the discourse about Goku online so polarizing? Well, it is a tale as old as time. It's the classic, my dad can beat up your dad. Goku is this character who was born to defy odds, to get stronger than thought possible, and defeat whoever is in his path. His power is a constantly shifting goalpost as he gets stronger and stronger, learning new skills and techniques, and how he showcases his power like nothing we've seen before. But there is one person who has some similarities to Goku that has often found himself in his path quite often, and that is, of course, Superman. Who knows when this debate started? It was definitely pre-internet, but regardless, it was something people were talking about. This could be because Goku and Superman have very similar origins, It could be the fact that they are both the strongest heroes from the East and West, respectively. What we do know is that it was, and still is, one of the most debated versus battles in history, if not the most. Death Battle obviously blew up the exposure on it, but only did so because it was the most requested battle at the time. And we can go back even further and find old web pages dedicated directly to this fight, and even this fight appearing as a hypothetical in an older magazine. For some reason, the Goku versus Superman fight was an inevitability. And because of this battle and how the two sides talk about their favorite character, the fan bases of both got a bad rap. But especially I want to say the Dragon Ball fans. This is because Superman had many different writers, versions, and comics over the years. One generation of Superman fans could be totally different than the next generation, from how they view the character's personality, to his power level, even his popularity. Whereas Dragon Ball was one creator, one story, and much more consistent in what it's putting out versus somebody like Superman. Not to mention the actual storytelling for these two were very different, because comic stories are typically more narrative focused with action on the side, while Dragon Ball was absolutely action focused and the story was pretty basic, which may have turned off a portion of comic audiences. And so the saga of comic and manga fans not understanding one another began and will never end. I've spoken my piece on this topic multiple times on my channel and in the past, so I won't rehash it all, but I do really believe that this is the reason why Dragon Ball, and Goku in particular, is looked down on or disliked by some in the power scaling community, or just by those who reject Eastern media, or just general pop culture. It's also a reason that on some of these versus battle forums, many anime versus comic debates are simply not allowed. And I get it, it can be difficult to try and scale these characters together. The laws of the anime and manga universe are certainly different than the laws of the comic universe, again, something I've talked about before. But it does really feel like the hate for Goku or Superman in this type of environment is likened to the Android versus Apple debate, where one side is dedicated to their side and they just hate the other. And they can say things like, well, we've got better features and our camera's better. Or in the case of this topic, right? This character's more inconsistent and this character has better feats. But it does seem more like mob mentality. But again, the origins of this could just be the fact that Goku, the character, was so different than what Western audiences were used to at the time. This was a great thing, I think, as it was a major exposure to anime for many, including myself, and introduced a new kind of hero to the West. But it was different. People were used to Superman-type characters, where they've got costumes, speed, strength, flight, big, heavy punches that showcase physical strength, or saving the world from this alien threat, or getting the girl, and then next week we have a new adventure. That was consistency. That was the hero. Certainly no martial arts like this at the time, nothing this stylized either. Also, the fact that Goku changed over time was different than most comic characters. Goku was not only getting older, but getting stronger and stronger, getting new forms and abilities, changing the debates as the series went on, as the character just became more and more impressive. This was not something that comic fans were used to, and not something that they liked. And for some people, it was just too different. It was just rejected outright. It was goofy and ridiculous and over the top. But he was popular, undoubtedly. And when you're at the top, you're going to attract some haters. Goku's presence and reputation as one of the most powerful, certainly the most popular being in anime and manga, propelled him into stardom, garnering the love and adoration of many, and the scorn and disdain of others. But one thing was consistent. He was popular. You knew who he was. Toriyama's tale of a monkey-tailed boy looking to have a wish granted, not meant to last more than a year, turned into the most iconic anime ever, shipped overseas across the world to great success, and created one of the most iconic characters of all time. His work influenced countless other media when it comes to telling action stories, reaching new forms and levels of power, while generally having a laid-back and fun protagonist, which was also not common. Goku and Dragon Ball was one of a kind, no doubt. And the story really is amazing to look back on, and I think can give a lot of young creators hope, because Toriyama was not some person who went to an expensive institution to learn how to draw or tell stories. He didn't need to study under a master for decades in order to get to some level of power to be able to tell a story. He was simply doing something that he wanted to do, and telling a story that he thought was fun. His story and the success of Dragon Ball really does fly in the face of a lot of what's told to creators today, that you have to be working 24/7. You need a degree, you need these connections, you need to do this and that and the other in order to be successful, when he showed you can be a very casual, laid-back, easygoing, fun person doing something that you love, and other people will recognize that. He didn't take it too seriously, he didn't worry about inconsistencies in his storytelling, he just wanted to do something cool, and made most of it up as he went along. And this is not meant to undersell or downplay the work that he undoubtedly put into it. It's not easy to draw a manga, especially for years at a time. But it is to showcase that you can find real success doing what you love. And that if you write and tell a story that you like and that you appreciate and that you put yourself into, other people are going to recognize that and they're going to like it as well. Akira Toriyama's work touched the entire world, and we will be forever grateful for it. Akira Toriyama passed away at the age of 68 on March 1st, 2024, from a subdural hematoma. He will be missed, remembered, and talked about in the same breath as giants such as Stan Lee and Walt Disney for his contributions to entertainment. Thank you, Akira Toriyama. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.